Good evening, everyone. Today we will start with the new topic, affinity electrophoresis. So, affinity electrophoresis, it is similar to that of affinity chromatography. Chromatography. Okay. So, before going into the details of affinity electrophoresis, I will tell you. I will briefly discuss the what was affinity chromatography, which we discussed in our previous chapter. So in affinity chromatography, what we have is that within a column, you are having these matrices, solid matrices, and these solid matrices they are attached with some biomolecules. Say for example, if you are talking about antigen antibody interaction, so you may be having onto these resins. We call these packing materials as resins. These resins are attached with a specific antibody. Okay. Now, if you add the serum, so it may or may not contain this antigen. So if the antigen is present over here, which is specific to this antibody, what it will do? It will go and bind to this antigen, this antibody. Okay. Now all the other stuffs within the serum, what will be done? They will be moving out as the waste. Okay. Then, as you change the properties of the column, say you may change the pH or you may change the ionic concentration of the eluent. So, by changing the physicochemical properties of the column, later on, once all the other waste materials they have been eluted out, and only this antigen is left bound to the column solid support, then by changing these physicochemical properties you can release this antigen and then you can collect this antigen. Okay, it may be other way around also. These solid resins, they may be having the epitopes of the antigen which has been bound onto the solid support. Okay, and thereafter you can try to find out the presence of the antibody within the serum. Okay, so this is a kind of affinity chromatography. Okay, now when we talk about affinity electrophoresis, over here we will be having a same kind of thing. However, in electrophoresis we have seen that we have a gel matrix, and within this gel matrix it may be agar, it may be page, okay, polyacrylamide gel, whatever the gel, one of the molecules which is act no which is what you call which can interact with the analyte of interest. Okay, those molecules are present within the gel. Are you getting my point? Suppose if we have a molecule A and it can interact with a molecule B or the analyte B, this B is the analyte, then this A is included within the gel. Okay, now once this is done, then you can perform the normal gel electrophoresis over there, uh, and you will find that due to the binding ability, these analytes they are moving up to a certain extent, and usually higher the concentration of the analyte, the longer will be the distance traveled by the analyte within the gel. Okay, so this is the basic fundamental of affinity electrophoresis. Okay, so the affinity electrophoresis, using this we can have both qualitative and quantitative information. Okay. uh, then based on the changes in the electrophoretic pattern of the molecules through bias specific interaction or the complex formation. Okay. So what it is telling is that the method, it is based on the changes in the electrophoretic pattern of the molecules through biospecific interaction or the complex. Then we have this interaction or binding of a molecule, whether it is charged or uncharged, will normally change the electrophoretic properties of the molecule. Okay. So that means, suppose if you are having an analyte A, and since say for example this A is the main biomolecules, okay, which is present within the gel, and B is our analyte. Okay. Suppose there is another analyte C. Now since A is present within the gel, it is an integral part of the gel. Okay. Now the movement of the B and the C, it will be dependent how this B and C, they are interacting with this gel. Okay, that is what it is told over here. So herein the analytes B and C, they may be charged or they may not be charged. Using this affinity electrophoresis, membrane proteins may be identified by a shift in mobility induced by a charged detergent. Okay. Then nucleic acid or nucleic acid fragments may be characterized by their affinity to other molecules. Okay, we will see a bit later on what are those what do you call type of studies which are being conducted. Okay, then the methods have been used for the estimation of the binding constants, as for instance in lectin affinity electrophoresis. Okay. Then lastly, for enzymes and other ligand binding proteins, affinity electrophoresis may be used as an alternative quantification of the protein. Okay. So herein it is given that see in 1970s the concanavalin A, how the electrophoresis, this affinity electrophoresis of concanavalin A, it looks like it has been given. Now herein, if you see the pH of this gel is 8.6. Okay, and this gel, it contains agarose. It is of agarose gel. That means it is an agarose gel electrophoresis, and it contained blood serum. Okay, and it contained blood serum. Now what is a concanavalin A? Concanavalin A, it is basically a lectin, which is a carbohydrate, and it has the capability to interact with the proteins. Okay, so in other words, by understanding this interaction between the lectin and the proteins, so since we are using the blood serum, so basically the proteins, they are basically the serum proteins which are available within the serum. So by understanding this, you will be able to understand what is the interaction of this lectin concanavalin A with the serum proteins. If you see, as we move from left to right, there is an increase in the concentration of the concanavalin A within the cells. Okay, so here we are having 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120 and 140. Now if you see, as the concentration of the analyte, it is being increased, the height of the peaks which are being observed, they are also increasing. Why this is so? If you consider a small area over here, so you will be having, within a small area, you will be having certain sites, certain number of or specific number of active sites which will interact with the concanavalin. Once they are saturated, the next portion it will be getting saturated. Then the other portion it will be getting saturated. Then the other portion. So higher the concentration of the analyte, the farther or the longer will be the distance covered by the what do you call, by the analyte within the affinity electrophoresis. I hope I have been able to make you understand this thing. Okay. Now, usually as in any other electrophoresis, this agarose gel electrophoresis, this affinity electrophoresis is also conducted uh, for overnight at less than 10 volts per centimeter. Okay. Now, what are the types of the affinity electrophoresis? First one is the agarose gel electrophoresis. We have just seen that we can add up some proteins over there, and we can try to find out uh, the analytes which will be there. Okay, so it is using a slightly modified agarose gel electrophoresis. We can go for this affinity electrophoresis, and this is one of the example of the affinity electrophoresis using the agarose gel electrophoresis technique. Okay, so the analysis of the concanavalin A using the agarose gel. Okay, so herein what happens is that this type of electrophoresis, it is regarded as electrophoretic mobility shift assay. Electrophoretic mobility shift assay. Okay, and it is also used to separate protein bound amino acid complexes from free amino acids. Okay, then affinity electrophoresis, the second type, rapid agarose gel electrophoresis. Herein, in rapid agarose gel electrophoresis, we can have we can utilize a high voltage which is usually greater than 20 volt per centimeter with a 0.5x Tris Boret buffer. Okay, and it is used to run the electrophoresis technique, and it is usually having a shorter run time. Okay, so in this also you will be having one affinity ligand, or you can say affinity substance which will be having the affinity for the analyte. It is regarded as the ligand. Okay, so say if B is the analyte and A is the molecule which is used for selectively what do you call, selectively hindering or selectively catching up the B, then this A is regarded as the ligand. Okay. Then we have boronate affinity electrophoresis. The boronate affinity electrophoresis, it utilizes boronic acid infused acrylamide gels. That means when we are talking about acrylamide gels, we are talking about PAGE, polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis, right? So it uses boronic acid infused acrylamide gels to purify NAD RNA. Okay, this purification allows for researchers to easily measure the kinetic activity of NAD RNA decapping enzymes. Then we have affinity capillary electrophoresis. So here the intermolecular interactions between molecules occurring in free solution or mobilized onto the solid support, it is being used for the separation purpose. Okay. Then affinity trap polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. Now in this what happens is that this affinity trap page, it is a two-step approach. Okay, in the first step a protein sample is run through the polyacrylamide gel using electrophoresis. After this then the samples are transferred to a different polyacrylamide gel, which is called the affinity trapped gel, where affinity probes are immobilized. Okay. Initially, what is happening? The primary page, it is being conducted, and after that, after this is being conducted, these proteins, they are being transferred to another polyacrylamide gel where affinity probes have been immobilized. Okay, and hence it is called affinity trap polyacrylamide gel electrophoresis. The, the proteins that do not have affinity for the affinity probes pass through the affinity gel trap, and proteins with affinity for the probes will be trapped by the immobile affinity probes. These trapped proteins are then visualized and identified using mass spectrometry after in-gel digestion. Okay. Then next is phosphate affinity electrophoresis. In phosphate affinity electrophoresis, it utilizes an affinity probe which consists of a molecule that binds specifically to divalent phosphate ions which are present in neutral aqueous solutions of the gel, and it is regarded as the phosphate. So, what are phosphates? Phosphates are the probes or the ligands which have the ability uh, to immobilize or to capture the divalent phosphate ions. This method, it is utilized. This method also utilizes a separation gel made of an acrylamide pendant phosphate. Okay, monomer that is copolymerized. Phosphorylated proteins migrate slowly within the gels. Okay, so any proteins which is having phosphorylation, they are being they can be selectively isolated using this phosphate affinity electrophoresis. Okay, this technique is used by the researchers, gives the researcher the ability to observe the differences in the phosphorylation states of any given protein. Okay, now our next topic is immunoelectrophoresis, but before going into the immunoelectrophoresis, I would shortly discuss about the double immunodiffusion. Okay, I hope every one of you have heard of radial immunodiffusion. So in the radial immunodiffusion, what you have uh, an agar plate. Within this, you have the antibody, a well which contains antibody, or it may also contain the antigen. Okay, so we are considering antibody is present within the well, and this agar plate, it is having the antigen for these things. Okay, so what happens is that say you are having an antigen A. Now this agar plate is filled up with, or it is consisting of the antigen. Now when you put this antibody within this well, it starts migrating in the radial direction in all the direction, and then you will get a circular zone, and this zone will give you an information about the what you call amount of antibody which is present within the sample, and it will be able to and its specificity with the antigen A. Okay. Now in the so this is called the radial immunodiffusion. Now this double immunodiffusion, what it is, suppose we are having the antibody AB over here, and we want to look into the information about the two antigens which may be similar, which may not be similar. Okay, so we have an antigen sample A and we have an antigen sample B. See, I am talking about antigen sample, I am not talking about antigen A and antigen B. I am telling that you are having two different samples from say two healthy volunteers, and you want to analyze it. Now suppose the sample 1 and sample 2, they are different antigens. Say one is having antigen A and the other is having antigen B. So in this case, we are having this antibody for both antigen A and antigen B. Now in this case, in this double immunodiffusion, you will be getting a cross stuff. Now this cross, this line, this blue colored line, it is due to the interaction between the antigen A and antibody A. So small a, capital A. Whereas the red line, it is for the interaction between the antigen B and antibody capital B. So small b, capital B. Okay. So in case both the antigens in well 1 and well 2 are different, then you will be getting a cross structure, and this kind of structure, it is regarded as the pattern of non-identity. The pattern of non-identity. Okay. Say for example, in both the well 1 and 2, suppose both the persons, they are having the same type of antigen, say antigen A and antigen A, then the cross mark what we were seeing in the first half, it is not there. Okay. So you will be getting a parabolic like structure. Okay. And the extension from here, it is not visualized. So this line, it is regarded as pattern of full identity. Pattern of full identity. Okay. Now say in well 1 and well 2, we have a mixture of antigens. Say what will happen, A1 A2 and A1 A3. So if you see A1 and A2, for these both of these antigen, we are having both A1 and A2 antibody, right? So we'll be getting a line. Initially we will be having small a, A1 capital A, A2 capital A2. Okay. However, there will be an extension through this line where we are having, which is not present in the second one. Now this extension is because of the A1, A2 and capital A2. Okay. So this extension, it is because of the interaction of the antigen mixture with the antibody A2. Okay. However, in the case of the second well, we are having A1, small a1, capital A1 and small a3, and you will be getting another line which will be a combination of both 1 and 2 type of identity lines, and this type of line, it is called pattern of partial identity. Pattern of partial identity. Now this is a picture of an Australoni double immunodiffusion plate. So it looks something like this one. Okay. Now in electrophoresis, what happens? It is an combination of immunodiffusion plus electrophoresis. So when you combine this, we get immunoelectrophoresis. Immunoelectrophoresis, it is usually carried out using agarose gel, which is having 1% agarose within that, and the thickness of the agarose gel is usually 1 mm thickness, and it has a very high pH, approximately 8.6. it is being used. Okay. The high pH is chosen because antibodies are practically immobile at high pH. And electrophoresis equipment with horizontal cooling plate is normally recommended because we are using agarose, right? So we have seen that the agarose gel electrophoresis, they are being performed in the horizontal electrophoresis setup. So yeah, another important thing which I forgot to mention is that this type of uh, patterns, if you see, they look like rockets, and hence these are regarded as rocket electrophoresis. They are regarded as rocket electrophoresis. Now, similar to the rocket electrophoresis, we can have rocket immunoelectrophoresis. So, increasing antigen concentration, antibody is being um, immobilized within the gel. What is the pH? pH is nearly 8.6, right? Yeah. Then you are having this precipitating arcs, and then electrophoresis, you are having anode, cathode. Antigens, they are usually anions in nature. So please be reminded, antigens, they appear as anions, and hence towards the antigen we give cathode. Okay, and this is a typical example of this thing, immunophoresis. So it will look something like this. Okay. Then we have counter immunoelectrophoresis. In this case, what you have, antigen, I said it is negative in nature. So we have a cathode, then antibody, they are comparatively cationic in nature. So you will be having anode. Now when you apply this thing, so if you normally do this by um, what do you call, by normal diffusion process, that is also possible. So that is a kind of radial diffusion, radial immunodiffusion. So you will be having this kind of activity zone, and somewhere you will be finding that there is an interface, straight line interface, and this is without any electrode. Now when you apply this electrophoresis technique, you will be getting a precipitation line, uh, but this precipitation line, it will be formed bit quickly as compared to the normal diffusion process. Okay, and this is an example of an plasmodium glutamate dehydrogenase enzyme separated by counter immunoelectrophoresis. Okay, now the last topic is microchip electrophoresis. Now in the microchip electrophoresis, you have microchannels. Now the diameter of these micro channels over here, this separation channel and all these things, it is basically in the range of 10 micrometer to 100 micrometer. Okay, and this is called the separation channel, and yeah, this is called the separation channel, and this channel, it is called the sample channel. Okay, separation channel and sample channel. Okay. Now, if you see, there are four plots, uh, four ports. So say east, west, north, and south. The east and west, uh, they can have a high voltage ports. Again, north and south, they can have another series of high voltage ports. Now, what happens is that when you inject the sample over here, okay, suppose you are having the anion over here, so you will be having the cathode. So you'll be having the cathode over here, so negative, and this will be the positive. So intermittently this will be on. So that means west and east, it will be on. Okay. Now what will happen if you see the electric current will move from positive to negative, or the anions, they will move from west to east, right? Now there is a chance that they may diffuse out into this separating channel. Now to avoid this, what it is done is that this north and the south, they are also given a negative charge. Okay, that means they also become cathode. This is cathode, this also becomes cathode. So what will happen? There will be a movement of the ions like in this fashion. So what it will do, it will keep the movement of the anions from west to east. Now once it is done, so see, during this process the movement of ions is in this fashion. Now next what it is done is that we given cathode position over here, this is cathode, because we are separating the anions, this becomes anode. Okay, okay, so this becomes cathode. So what is happening, all of them, they are repelling, and when they are repelling it, the anions, they are being moved into the separating channel, and due to this cathode and anode high voltage electrodes, you will be having the separation within the separation channel, and you will be getting the bands over here, and at the end port of this towards the anode, you will be having the detector for the measurement of the analytes. Are you getting my point? So there is a sequential change in the electrical field. So initially what is happening? So suppose if I draw like this, so say cathode, 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 and this will be anode. Okay, so the anions will be moving towards this anode, right? Now secondly, what you will be having during the separation phase, just after that one, you will be having green, right? So you will be having anode, sorry, black. We will be having anode, then here we will be having cathodes. Okay, so the separation or the direction of the movement of the anions will be in this direction, and in the initial stage it will be from west to east. Okay, so in this way it works. Now the first stage, it is called the injection stage, and the second stage, it is called the separation stage. Okay, in some book you will find that initially the voltage is applied in the west east direction, and then sequentially what happens, the voltage is applied in the north south direction, north south direction. Okay, so both type of microchip electrophoresis techniques are available. Either in the first case, what I have told you, that the electric field at all the four ports, they are being allowed, or they are being applied, and in the second case, electric field is applied only at two ports. Okay. So what is the advantage? The first advantage is you need very small sample. Second is lower time. Okay. Third is you can go for, uh, since there is a lower number of times, at a shorter time you can go for higher number of samples, higher number of sample analysis. Okay. So these are some of the this thing. So how there is a higher number of sample analysis, you can go for parallel analysis using a different thing. Okay, and different stuffs, right? So this is a microchip electrophoresis. So what is the base of the microchip electrophoresis? PDMS. It is a polymer matrix which forms the base for the or the matrix within which the channels, microchannels are made. So that is the what do you call this, polymer matrix. And then within the base you usually have a glass base. Okay, or even we can have the this PDMS microchip base. Okay, then we can go for the multiple or parallel microchip electrophoresis. So over here you can see we can have a number of channels, one, two, three. We are having multiple number of channels, and we can go for the multiple electrophoresis at is okay. So uh, uh, over here we can have multiple channels which can be carried out parallelly, and you can analyze a large number of samples over here. So you can get this parallel microchip electrophoresis over here. Okay, and also the size is very small, so the cost of operation, it also becomes quite small if you go for uh, a higher number of testing. Okay, so per unit cost it becomes very cheap. And so do you have any questions? No? So we will stop over here.